Not me going to the wrong scene. Oh my god. That's so embarrassing. Way earlier than I meant to as well. Oh my god. I'm a fool. I'm a fool. Hello. Hello. Oh goodness gracious. Trying to set things up behind the scenes and I've been exposed. I've been exposed. Hello, how's it going? How's everybody doing? Okay. I think I have everything set for the most part. Hello, how's everybody doing? It's good to see you here. I'm glad to. Okay, going very well. Good, good. I'm glad to hear that. It's another beautiful day outside today, and so I decided to spend it sitting inside, at least for a few hours, staring at my computer screen and being miserable as we go over the subject matter of today's stream. Obviously, by the title, what I want to do today is obviously, okay, shit's been going like crazy in Palestine, or I guess the Gaza Strip recently. No one, I don't think there's a single human being on Earth who is unaware of that fact right now, regardless of what side they kind of land on. But to kind of give a little bit of background, I was not aware really that there was a major conflict between Palestine and Israel for a long time. Or I guess major conflict when people say major conflict, they mean like all-out war or whatever. But I mean, there is a major conflict going on there. And it's been going on for a while. I wasn't aware of it for a long time, partially because I was raised conservative. So, you know, if I were to fall on either side of that, it would have been on the Zionist side. But, you know, we break out of those times. We grow. We become better people. Regardless, obviously, you know, with everything that's been going on recently, it's come more into center focus. So I wanted to kind of do some research on it. It's not going to be like the most comprehensive research in the world, but I wanted to educate myself as much as I could right now on this particular topic, so that way I know what's going on and you know how to make my arguments, or what arguments to make, I suppose. So you know, and it, just in case there's a lack of clarity on this, or a lack of transparency on this situation, I fall on the side of obviously the Palestinians. They're being genocided. They've been slowly genocided, as I understand, since, well, really Israel's inception. Israel, since its inception, has been slowly but surely conquering the land of the Palestinians and ethnically cleansing them, all that good, fun, lovely stuff. So I hope you're ready for that today, you know. But yeah, one thing to kind of, I guess, this is just easing us into it. Recently, there has been the protests at Columbia University, I think it is, if I'm remembering correctly. Pretty major protests going on there, student protests, pro-Palestinian protests. Godspeed, I hope they stay safe. I know there's been some shit going on with that lately. Maybe we'll go over that a little bit, but that's not my primary focus today. And I know it's sparked a lot of like protests across the nation, but to those who are going out and participating in those protests, please stay safe, practice caution, just be aware of your surroundings, so on and so forth. But on top of that, more recently, much more recently, there have been reports of mass graves being uncovered in the Gaza Strip. Obviously, as shocking as it is, I can't say I'm surprised. The IDF and just the Israeli military in general are fucking monsters. Of course, as they're going through, you know, bombing out homes, dragging people into streets and shooting them, they're going to be covering up as many of their atrocities as possible. So I'm not surprised necessarily that they're fighting mass graves, but I am shocked just because it's horrible. It's fucking sick. There's just not enough words to muster. There's just not enough words in the English language, or maybe any language, to describe the evil that is occurring there. Regardless, to kind of ease into that, I wanted to go over a few of the articles talking about that more recent uncovering. So they're just a few articles. I didn't do anything too crazy in terms of like in-depth research, because I wanted to go over this to together. I wanted to kind of go through this together, go on a journey, hand in hand, as we walk through the atrocities of our history. So let's go over those first. So first of all, I don't have the best radar on what's the most reliable source and what's not. So I kind of I didn't randomly pick, but I did my best educated guess on like who could be reliable and who could not for when we go over this. Oh, and then another thing that I don't want to forget, obviously, there's the other thing. Israel just has been kind of going sicko mode in general. They attacked, it was the Iranian consulate, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was. And then Israel and Iran have been exchanging fire, back and forth since then. But more importantly, obviously the focus of this isn't on those things, but I wanted to go over them because they are related, and I don't want anyone to miss how fucking horrible this has been. These are the wrong things. Let me... Oh, God. I am a master of misclicking. You may not see it, but I see it, and that's enough. Also, I don't know. Let's see. Perfect. All right. So here's one by... What is it by? The Guardian. Like I said, I don't know how reliable these resources are, but I imagine if they're going to go over this, they'll have some responsibility, I hope. Regardless, let's go ahead and get started. Perfect. All right, perfect. So, UN Rights Chief, I'm just going to be reading a bit of the article at you right now, just as we go over but UN Rights Chief horrified by reports of mass graves at 2 Gaza hospitals. As I understand, it's over 200, maybe about 300 bodies that they found, although we'll, discover that here soon. The UN Human Rights Chief, Volker Turk, has said he was horrified by reports of mass graves containing hundreds of bodies at 2 of Gaza's largest hospitals. Palestinian civil defense teams began exhuming bodies from a mass grave outside the Nasser hospital complex in Khan Yunis last week after Israeli troops withdrew. Yeah, didn't they bomb out the Nasser hospital? I know that there was another hospital that was the Al-Shifa hospital. I think they destroyed the Al-Shifa hospital as well, but anyway. A total of 310 bodies have been found in the last week, including 35 in the past day, Palestinian officials have said. We feel the need to raise the alarm because clearly there have been multiple bodies discovered, said Ravina Shamdasani, spokesperson for the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. I apologize if I mispronounce any names. She describes bodies buried deep in the ground and covered with waste, adding that among the deceased were allegedly older people, women, and wounded, including some bound and stripped of their clothes. Yeah, I can only imagine what those people endured before they were probably even potentially buried alive. I mean, we've all seen I guess we haven't all seen it, but we have at least heard about, IDF soldiers literally, just gunning down people in the streets, randomly shooting children openly. Nobody challenged them on that or anything, but... some of them had their hands tied, which of course indicates serious violations of international human rights law and international humanitarian law, and these need to be subjected to further investigation. She said, Palestinian rescue teams and several observation missions from the UN also reported the discovery of multiple mass grave sites in the Shifa hospital compound in Gaza City earlier this month after Israeli ground troops withdrew after a prolonged siege. Okay, yeah, I'm not surprised. Also, if you have any other articles or other pieces of media that you think are relevant that you would want me to go over, go ahead. Just let me know. Maybe link them if you're feeling in the mood. Medics working for Doctors Without Borders described how Israeli forces attacked Nasser Hospital in late January before withdrawing a month later, leaving the facility unable to function. Yeah. So then they probably destroy both hospitals. I wouldn't be surprised. Rescue workers are continuing to dig through the sandy earth to exhume bodies outside the hospital. Shamdasani said her office was working on corroborating Palestinian officials' reports that hundreds of bodies had been found at the site. Officials in Gaza said the bodies at Nasser were people who had died during the siege. Israel's military on Tuesday rejected allegations of mass burials at the hospital, saying it had exhumed corpses to try and find hostages taken by Hamas in October. Oh my god. Every time I hear Hamas, I just get so mad because it's like they literally have nothing to do with it. And to me, they literally never had anything to do with it. The attack on October 7th was just, of course, the excuse Netanyahu had been waiting for to begin full-throatedly genociding the Palestinians. Regardless, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if some of the bodies were from just burials in general. You know, you don't want to keep corpses around. But at the same time, like, they might try and use that as an excuse. I wouldn't believe it for a second, though. I would just, it's safer to assume that the bodies are from, the fun little torture experiments that the IDF, were carrying out on the Palestinian civilians. Anyway, the claim that the IDF, Israeli Defense Forces, buried Palestinian bodies is baseless and unfounded, the military said, adding that after examining the bodies, its forces had returned them to where they had previously been buried. I don't believe anything the IDF says. They're all fucking liars. Israel has reportedly accused Hamas of operating hospitals and using medical infrastructure as a shield, which Hamas denies. Again, okay, like, they say this all the fucking time. Hamas is in their hospitals, Hamas is in their homes, Hamas is in their fucking dog's kennel, Hamas is in their water. There's chemicals in the water that are turning the Palestinians Hamas! Anyway, the UN rights chief also condemned increasing numbers of Israeli airstrikes that have pummeled northern, central, and southern Gaza in recent days, including naval artillery fire, and has struck buildings along Gaza's eastern shoreline. Airstrikes hit many areas already reduced to little more than rubble and broken slabs of concrete after 200 days of war, including Beit Lahia in the north and the center of Gaza City. The north remains dire, said Olga Sherevko of the UN's Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, speaking during a visit to the area. There's more food coming in, but there's no money to buy it. Healthcare facilities destroyed. There's no fuel to run water wells, and sanitation is a massive issue. There's sewage everywhere. Yeah, don't forget, the situation is thoroughly fucked there. They literally don't have any facilities for anything. They don't have housing. They don't have medical care. They don't have water. They don't have electricity. They don't have literally anything. The Israeli group or ground troops reportedly staged a brief incursion into eastern Khan Yunis in the south of Gaza. Satellite images from the destroyed city showed a growing tent encampment, which could be intended to house people fleeing Rafah in the event of Israeli ground attack there. This is a nice little thing they have. Oh damn. Blurriest fucking image. Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, has repeatedly threatened to attack Rafah, Gaza's southernmost city, where more than 1 million people are sheltering. On Tuesday, Turk again warned against a full-scale incursion of Rafah, saying it could lead to further atrocity crimes. Bellany Ward, the head of medical aid for Palestinians, who has recently returned from a visit to Gaza, said an Israeli invasion would be impossible without human slaughter. Ward said the roads running north of Rafah, approaching Deir al-Balah in central Gaza, were already crammed with people. Yeah, okay. I don't want to. It seems we're pretty close to the end, but I feel like that might have given us a pretty sufficient look into what's going on. We'll take a look at this one too. Let's see. I feel like the United Nations news would definitely be a little more reliable than the Guardian, because I feel like I've seen the Guardian take some pretty cringe takes before. But let's see. The development follows the recovery of hundreds of bodies buried deep in the ground and covered with waste over the weekend in the Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis, central Gaza, and Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza in the city in the north. Total 283 bodies were recovered at Nasser Hospital, of which 42 were identified. Among the deceased were allegedly older people who had been wounded, while others were found tied with their hands tied and stripped of their clothes, said Ravina Shamdasani, spokesperson for the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. Let's see. Citing the local health authorities in Gaza, Ms. Shamdasani added that more bodies have been found at Al Shifa Hospital. The large health complex was the enclave's main territory. Yep. It's the focus of an Israeli military incursion to root out Hamas militants allegedly operating inside, which ended at the beginning of this month. After 2 weeks of intense clashes, UN humanitarians assessed the site, confirmed on April 5th that Al Shifa was an empty shell, with most equipment reduced to ashes. Reports suggest that there were 30 Palestinian bodies buried in 2 graves. Yeah, I can imagine, like, the funerary attitude around this particular circumstances these particular circumstances would be suboptimal. You don't, I mean, you really, that's another thing people don't really think about. There's a lot of fucking, like, it's not just about not having water or food or shelter or anything like that. Like, this is a bit of an understatement, maybe. There are a lot of people dying, a lot of Palestinians dying, and it's like, where are the people who are still alive going to bury them? They have to literally, like, they can't bury them. It doesn't matter if they bury them. They have, like, they'll probably just end up leaving them rotting on the side of the street or in the hospital or the bombed out homes, and that spreads infection, and, spreads disease, it spreads infection, it's extremely unsanitary. Yeah, it's fucked. Let's see. As of, some 200 days, did I already read that? UN Human's chief, Volker Turk, expressed his horror at the destruction of Nasser and Al Shifa hospitals and the reported discovery of mass graves. The intentional killing of civilians, detainees, and others who are hors de combat is a war crime, Mr. Turk said in a call. Yeah, okay. So I think as of April 22nd, more than 34,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza, including 14,685 children and 9,670 women. As far as I'm aware, a pretty damn good number of the Palestinian population is literally just children. So, also, this is a bit nitpicky. It doesn't really matter as much. I hate that when they're talking about this stuff, they always specify women and children. The children part, not so much, but the women part, it's like, yeah. Like, well, I mean, it's like, yeah, that's pretty horrible, but let's not discredit the deaths of, like, the other people, too. Not that they are. It's just, I don't know. The emphasis on it has always been a little weird to me, but I understand why. It's definitely a lot more, grabs people's attention a lot more. But, yeah. Let's see. The UN rights chief also reiterated his warning against a full-scale Israeli incursion of Rafah. There are an estimated 1.2 million Gazans, where an estimated 1.2 million Gazans have been forcibly cornered. The world's leaders stand united. Let's see. Turning to the West Bank, the UN... Okay, that's the last bit. We'll go ahead and read the last bit. Turning to the West Bank, the UN rights chief said the human graves rights violations had continued here unabated. This was despite international condemnation of massive settler attacks between April 12th and April 14th that had been facilitated by the Israeli security forces. Settler violence has been organized with the support, protection, and participation of the ISF, Mr. Turk insisted, before describing a 50-hour-long operation into Nur Shams refugee camp in Tulkarem city starting on April 18th. The ISF destroyed ground troops, bulldozers, and drones are... The ISF deployed ground troops. God, I'm so dyslexic. And bulldozers and drones and sealed the camp. 14 Palestinians were killed, 3 of them children, the UN rights chief said, noting that 10 ISF members had been injured. In a statement, Mr. Turk also highlighted reports that several Palestinians had been unlawfully killed in the Nur Shams operation and that the ISF used unarmed Palestinians to shield their forces from attack and killed others in apparent extrajudicial excursions. Yeah, okay. I think we get the idea. Pretty fucking ghoulish, pretty evil, in my opinion. That's, like I said, just the easiest way to put it. It's pretty fucking it's dark, dude. It sucks. It's really sad, you know. Not only is the IDF like just literally mowing over the Palestinian population, but you also have like the settlers that are coming in and taking land as well. I will say though, there was that, I don't know if you've seen it, but there was a video going around on Twitter of this. Basically, it was like this settler, his husband, or him and his wife, for whatever reason. Well, actually, I know the reason. They were like in a field. And in the field, there was a Palestinian flag. and the husband or the wife was recording the husband walking out to the flag, and he was gonna like kick it over or whatever. But when he got over to it and he went to kick it, apparently there was like a landmine right there, and it went off and fucking blew him up. So I didn't want to see that gore that day, but and fuck, that's what settlers get. I guess I don't know. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. I'm not upset by it, but anyway, yeah, pretty dark developments. It sucks. That's an understatement, but it's just... Yeah, well, I didn't know what it was. I'm glad you scrolled past it because it's gore, and I don't know why. I mean, for reporting's sake, sometimes gore has to be acceptable. But, yeah, like that video was... Yeah, anyway. So, Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Let's get started. Like I said, I didn't really know it was a thing for a long time. I grew up being given the idea that, like, I didn't even know Palestine was a country. I literally, when I was younger, I thought Palestine was interchangeable with, like, Iraq or, like, Iran or Syria or whatever. I literally didn't know the difference. There are major differences, but whatever. I didn't know the difference. Like I said, I grew up Mormon, so Israel was the good guy, the Holy Land, so on and so forth. And then... I got out of that and, more progressive, so on and so forth. And then all this shit happened. And like I said, what I know about it is that Palestine was a country a long time ago. And then the U.S. kind of funded the establishment of the Israeli government, in large part inspired by the evangelical Christian, death cult beliefs of Israel being the Holy Land, and Jews have to occupy the Holy Land in order for the rapture to happen or the second coming to happen. So, but the reality wasn't that. It was that Israel ended up, through the U.S.'s aid, expanding and growing and taking over Palestinian territory just over the course of decades, slowly growing in size while forcing the size of Palestine down until it was basically just it didn't exist as a country anymore, and then they were relegated to just having the Gaza Strip as their territory. And I know that since then Israel has been a major, or not, I don't want to say major because I don't know, but from what I understand, Israel has consistently exacerbated tensions between the different Middle Eastern countries. So overall, Israel not great. But I don't know anything about Palestine. So first I want to learn about the conflict, and then maybe later we'll do like a Palestine and Palestinian specific research kind of stream. So let's go ahead. Boom. Wikipedia. We're going to start there. I have another one pulled up, but we're going to start with Wikipedia surface level, and then depending on how long that takes, we'll go to something else. If I don't get to something else today, then I'll probably do it another time. So that way, I like Wikipedia. I understand its usefulness, but I also understand that it is not always the 100% like accurate source. So let's see. Let's go over the summary real quick. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict, ongoing military and political conflict about land and self-determination within the territory of the former Mandatory Palestine. I don't know what that means, so maybe we'll open that in a new link. Key aspects of the conflict include the Israeli occupation of the West Bank and Gaza Strip, the status of Jerusalem, Israeli settlements, borders, security, water rights, the permit regime. I don't know what that is, so we're going to take a look at that. Palestinian freedom of movement and the Palestinian right of return. The conflict has its origin in the rise of Zionism in Europe and the arrival of Jewish settlers to Ottoman Palestine in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The local Arab population opposed Zionism primarily out of fear of territorial displacement and dispossession. Damn, that's crazy. It's almost like they were psychic. It's almost like they could see the future, the clairvoyance. The Zionist movement guarded the support of an imperial power in the 1917 Balfour Declaration issued by Britain. We're not gonna look at every single link I open, but I am gonna pull them open in case it becomes much more relevant later, or if I'm curious. Anyway, issued by Britain, which promised to support the creation of a Jewish homeland in Palestine. Following the defeat of the Ottoman Empire during World War I, Mandatory Palestine was established as a British mandate. Tensions between Jews and Arabs grew into intercommunal conflict. In 1936, an Arab revolt erupted demanding independence, which the British suppressed. What? In the 1947 United Nations Partition Plan for Palestine triggered the 1948 Palestine War, which saw the expulsion and flight of most Palestinian Arabs, the establishment of Israel on most of the Mandate's territory, and the control of the Gaza Strip and the West Bank by Egypt and Jordan, respectively. In the 1967 Six-Day War, Israel occupied the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, which became known as the Palestinian territories, which is now considered to be the longest military occupation in modern history and has drawn international condemnation for violating the human rights of the Palestinians. God damn, there's a lot going on here. The conflict has claimed many civilian casualties, mostly Palestinians, since its inception. Various attempts have been made to resolve the conflict as part of the Israeli-Palestinian peace process, alongside efforts to resolve the broader Arab-Israeli conflict. Progress towards a negotiated solution between the Israeli government and the Palestinian Liberation Organization was made with the Oslo Accords of 1993 to 1995. The majority of recent peace efforts have been centered around the two-state solution, which involves the establishment of an independent Palestinian state alongside Israel. Public support for a two-state solution, which formerly enjoyed support from both Israeli Jews and Palestinians, has dwindled in recent years. Official negotiations are mediated by the Quartet of the Middle East, which consists of the United Nations, the United States, Russia, and the European Union. Wait, hold on, let me review that. Official mediated by the Quartet of the Middle East. Oh, okay. The UN, the US, Russia, and the EU. The Arab League, which has proposed the Arab Peace Initiative, is another important actor, along with Egypt and Jordan. Since 2006, the Palestinian side has been split between Fatah dominating the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank and Hamas that gained control of the Gaza Strip. Attempts to remedy this have been repeated and continuing. Since 2019, the Israeli side has also been experiencing political crisis. The latest round of peace negotiations began in July 2013. Good God! But were suspended in 2014. Since 2006, Hamas and Israel have fought 5 wars, the most recent of which began in 2023 and is ongoing as of April 2024. So what I understand, what very little I understand, when it comes to like the two-state solution stuff, like there really isn't anything left for the Palestinians to claim statehood for. So like this, from what I understand, like the very limited amount of knowledge I have, this two-state solution, it's not that it isn't good, it's just that it's literally just doesn't have the necessary, like, I guess, content to exist. I don't know, but like I said, a very little knowledge on that. So, okay, I want to go over, let's see, Mandatory Palestine. What does this mean? Was a geopolitical entity that existed between 1920 and 1948 in the region of Palestine, under the terms of the League of Nations Mandate for Palestine. Oh my God. League of Nations? What is this? Let's see. The League of Nations was the first worldwide intergovernmental organization whose principal mission was to maintain world peace. It was founded on January 10th, 1920 by the Paris Peace Conference that ended in the First World War. Oh my God. After an Arab uprising against the Ottoman Empire arose during the First World War in 1916, British forces drove Ottoman forces out of the Levant. The United Kingdom had agreed with the McMahon-Hussein Correspondence. Okay. That's what it sounds like. That's what it seems like, is just from this brief thing, is that it's like an UN. Let's see. Where did I leave off? Hussein Correspondence said it would honor Arab independence in case of revolt, but in the end, the United Kingdom and France divided what had been Ottoman Syria under the Sykes-Picot Agreement, an act of betrayal in the eyes of the Arabs. Another issue was the Balfour Declaration of 1917, in which Britain promised its support to the establishment of a Jewish national home in Palestine. So, okay, I see. Mandatory Palestine was then established in 1920, and the British obtained a mandate for Palestine from the League of Nations in 1922. Okay, so let's see. Let's see if I can summarize this in my brain and understand. British forces of Ottoman forces. Okay, so yeah, Kingdom agreement. Okay, so basically, it seems like the United Kingdom kicked the there was an Arab uprising in Arab uprising against the Ottoman Empire within. Oh, okay. Well, God, I have to develop the brain for this, I suppose. So basically, let's see. The UK agreed to support the Arabs, to support Arab independence, but ended up going back on it in order to establish the supposed. Well, let's see. Hold on. But in the United Kingdom, France divided what had been Ottoman Syria under the Sykes-Picot Agreement. Let's see. Ottoman Syria, first division of the Ottoman Empire with the region of Syria, within the region of Syria, usually defined as B. The Sykes-Picot Agreement was a 1960 secret treaty between the United Kingdom and France, with assent from the Russian Empire and the United Kingdom to define their mutually agreed spheres of influence and control on an eventual part. Oh, okay. So when the Ottoman Empire fell apart, it was just like the Sykes-Picot Agreement was the agreement that the UK and France had about how they were gonna, I guess, divvy it up between each individual or each nation, and then they kind of betrayed, or in doing so, in establishing the Sykes-Picot Agreement and staying true to that, was ultimately betrayed the their supposed their word that they would honor the Arab independence. But let's see, another promise. Okay, yeah, and then in 1917, it looks like Britain was basically like, fuck you, Palestine, we're going to put the Jewish national home right in the middle of you, or we'll just make you the Jewish national home, which the Arabs obviously weren't happy about. And then mandatory Palestine, 2914, okay. Mandate for Palestine, let's see, was a League of Nations mandate for British administration of the territories of Palestine and the Transjordan, both of which had been conceded by the Ottoman Empire following the... Oh, God. Here we go. It's starting. Okay. It was a League of Nations mandate for British administration of the territories of Palestine and Transjordan, both of which had been conceded by the Ottoman Empire in the World War in 1918. The mandate was assigned to Britain by the San Remo... Wait, hold on. For British administration. Oh, okay. So wait, the mandate for Palestine was a League of Nations mandate for British administration of the territories of Palestine. So it was a mandate for how the British administration would handle the Palestinian Transjordan territories, which the Ottoman Empire conceded to. The mandate was assigned to Britain by the San Remo Conference in April 1920 after France's concession in the 1918 agreement of the previously agreed international restraint. Oh my God, there's so much here. I knew there would be. This is why I feared to do it, but it's good to learn. Transjordan was added to the mandate after the Arab Kingdom of Damascus was toppled by the French in the Franco-Syrian War. Civil administration began in Palestine. Okay, so I think I get the idea of what the mandate for Palestine is. League of Nations. Okay, I understand what that is. Okay, let's back up a little bit then. Let's see. It's an ongoing in the territory of former mandatory Palestine. Key aspects of the conflict include the Israeli... Okay, so yeah, let's see. Make sure I understand this still. During the mandate, areas saw successful Jewish immigration, the rise of... Okay. Palestine. So... the mandatory Palestine was just like the... Let me make sure I understand this correctly. The mandatory Palestine was just like the promise from the British to the Arabs that in the case of an Arab revolt, they would support Arab independence. But they ended up going back on that and kind of divvying up the territory between the French and the UK. And then the UK tried to establish, let's see, Kingdom and France divided an act of betrayal. She was the Belfort, which Britain promised. Okay. So wait, the Balfour Declaration came in 1917. So then, when was the Sykes-Picot? 1916. So this came after. And then let's see, British. The government of the United Kingdom agreed to recognize Arab independence in a large region after the war in exchange for the Sharif of Mecca launching the Arab revolt against the Ottoman Empire. Okay, so it seems like this was in 1916. Okay. So it looks like in 1916 they made the Sykes-Picot Agreement, and then they further compounded it by with the Balfour Declaration, which okay, yeah, and then came the Balfour Declaration, which is basically like the British saying, we're gonna make, despite or against your wishes, we're going to make your country into the Jewish national home, which mandatory Palestine was then established in 1920, and the British obtained a mandate for Palestine from the League of Nations in 1920. Okay, hold on. During the area system with Jewish immigration, the rise of nationalist movements, both the Jewish and Arab communities, competing interests of the two populations led to the 1936-1939 Arab revolt in Palestine and the 1944-1948 Jewish insurgency in mandatory Palestine. The United Nations partition plan for Palestine to divide the territories into two states, one Arab and one Jewish, was passed in November 1947. In the 1948 Palestine War ended with the territory of mandatory Palestine divided among the state of Israel. Ended with the territory of mandatory Palestine divided among the state of Israel, the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, which annexed territory in the West Bank of the Jordan River, and the Kingdom of Egypt, which established the All-Palestinian Protectorate in the Gaza Strip. Mandatory Palestine was designated as Class A mandate based on its social, political, and economic development. This classification was reserved for post-war mandates with the highest capacity for self-governments. All Class A mandates, other than the mandatory Palestine, had gained independence by 1946. Okay. So what it sounds like to me is the British, the French, and, well, mainly it seems like they're the British, or the UK, France, and then Jordan, and and Egypt. Those are the two. Basically, just said fuck you to Palestine and did whatever the fuck they wanted with them, and against their wishes, against their against them, essentially forced not Jewish occupation, but Jewish citizenry, or I need to think of a better term for that because that sounds weird. Jewish immigration. It's right there. It's literally right there. If I could just read. They didn't force it, but they opened it up to Jewish immigration and created this tension. Okay, let's see. Let's pick up where I left off. Alright, the history. Let's see. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict began in the late 19th and early 20th centuries with the development of political Zionism and the arrival of Zionist settlers to Palestine. The modern political Zionist movement, with the goal of establishing a Jewish state in Palestine, grew out of the last 2 decades of the 19th century, largely in response to anti-Semitism in Europe. While Jewish colonialization began during this period, it was not until the arrival of more ideologically Zionist immigrants in the decade preceding the First World War that the landscape of Ottoman Palestine would start to significantly change. Land purchases, the eviction of tenant Arab peasants, and armed confrontation with Jewish paramilitary units would all contribute to the Palestinian population's growing fear of territorial displacement and dispossession. This fear would gradually be replaced by a broader sense of Palestinian national expression, which included the rejection of the Zionist goal of turning the mostly Arab populated land into a Jewish homeland. From early on, the leadership of the Zionist movement had the idea of transferring, a euphemism for ethnic cleansing, the Arab Palestinian population out of the land for the purposes of establishing a Jewish demographic majority. So, literally from the onset, they were looking to just completely remove the Arabs from the land and replace them with a Jewish population to establish the supposed Jewish Holy Land. Also, it looks like just straight out from the bat, they literally had, no reason to do this other than just Zionism, just the Zionist goal. Let's see. The idea of transfer Benny Morris describes was inevitable and built into Zionism. The Arab population felt this threat as early as the 1880s with the arrival of the first Aliyah. So there was literally no like precedent no precedent, no proceedings or anything which justified or legitimized their just like random decision to put the very early stages of the Israeli state where it was. And, like there is literally no reason to do it. Okay, that's cool. Let's see. Chaim Weizmann's? I don't know. Efforts to build British support for the Zionist movement would eventually secure the Balfour Declaration, a public statement issued by the British government in 1917 during the First World War announcing support for the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. Weizmann would take on a maximalist interpretation of the Declaration, in which negotiations on the future of the country were to happen directly between Britain and the Jews, excluding Arab representation. Oh, that's cool. So literally just completely cutting out any input from the Arab population or any Arab representation. Literally just like making the choices for them without any consideration for what Palestine actually wanted, or the people of Palestine actually wanted. So that's cool. Literally just like talking over them, walking over them from the very beginning. At the Paris Peace Conference, he would later famously share his interpretation of the Declaration in his announcement of the goal to make Palestine as Jewish as England is English. Partially in response to the Zionist movement, a Palestinian national movement would develop more concretely in the interwar period. The years that followed would see Jewish-Palestinian relations deteriorate dramatically. Okay. Straight off the bat, from what I'm just seeing here, it is not like, how do I put this? Obviously, the Jews are not like to blame. There are probably people who would be quick to blame the Jews for this. Obviously, the Palestinians aren't too happy with the Jews for it either. It's really unfortunate to see that too, because like the relationship, I feel like there is obviously the opportunity for a lot of interpersonal like bigotry between the two groups of like the Palestinians and the Jews, and there are a lot of Jews who probably moved onto those lands who were not like ideologically opposed to the Arabs or even or wanted any confrontation at all, or were like bigoted towards them in any way. That just kind of like they were directed there, and they ended up there, and that was just kind of the situation that they were in. And it's really, you know, obviously the Palestinians had to like deal with the fallout of that, especially when, you know, the whole problem was that the British governments, you know, so on, were literally like forcing this on people, including probably a lot of the Jewish citizens that ended up, you know, immigrating there. So yeah, with the commitment to establishing a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine, the creation of the British Mandate in Palestine after the end of the First World War would allow for large-scale Jewish immigration. This would be accompanied by the development of a separate Jewish-controlled sector of the economy, which was supported with large amounts of capital from abroad. The more ardent Zionist ideologues of the Second Aliyah would become the leaders of the Yishuv starting in the 1920s and believed in the separation of Jewish and Arab economies and societies. During this period, the exclusionary nationalist ethos would grow to overpower the socialist ideas that the Second Aliyah had arrived with. Holy fuck. God damn. They really are just like completely and utterly cutting out like any Palestinian representation or Arab input at all. It's fucking insane. The return of several hardline Palestinian and Arab nationalists under the emerging leadership of Haj Amin al-Husseini from Damascus to Mandatory Palestine marked the beginning of Palestinian Arab nationalist struggle towards establishment of a national home for Arabs of Palestine. Amin al-Husseini, God, I'm trying. The architect of the Palestinian Arab national movement immediately marked Jewish national movement and Jewish immigration to Palestine as the sole enemy to his cause, initiating large-scale riots against the Jews as early as 1920 in Jerusalem and in 1921 in Jaffa, I don't know. Among the results of the violence was the establishment of the Jewish paramilitary force Haganah in 1929. A series of violent riots resulted in the deaths of 133 Jews and 116 Arabs, with significant Jewish casualties in Hebron and Safed, and the evacuation of Jews from Hebron and Gaza. Okay. Take a step back and try to process the information, I guess. So it's like, god damn, this is a pretty fucked situation from the onset. Obviously, it really does feel like this was largely exacerbated by the imposition of like the of France and the UK. It's kind of fucking insane. I don't know. It's maybe it's just because like in my brain with the UK being basically a dead nation now and France being France, I just don't really see them like kind of inciting things like this. But I mean, obviously they're nations, they're countries, they're not beyond it. I just the intensity right off the bat is insane. I mean, it goes without saying, no one. I guess I should clarify. Like, no one is entitled to. Hold on. No one is entitled to like an ethno state. No one is entitled to have, well, I mean, an ethno state, a zone, a country, a state which is exclusive to a single, group. Like whether you're, I mean, it's the Jews were obviously not having the best time back in those days, but I don't think that necessitates the establishment of an ethno state. But I can't really blame the Palestinians for being like pretty damn hardline against them. And I don't want to play into the idea of like, it was, how do I say this? It's not like it was some like grand conspiracy, so to speak. It does seem like maybe maybe like a lot of the Jewish immigration was kind of being forced a little bit. I mean, obviously, like the UK and whatnot wanted to remove the Arabs from the location, and they needed to have the Jewish occupation in order to do that. But it just like God, a lot of these citizens and immigrants just being used as a tool of fucking colonialism, or maybe not colonialism. I wouldn't say colonialism, but regardless, it's fucking insane. Anyway, 1936 to 1939, Arab Revolt. In the early 1930s, the Arab national struggle in Palestine had drawn many Arab nationalist militants from across the Middle East, such as, Sheikh Izzaddin al-Qassam from Syria, who established the Black Hand militant group and had prepared the grounds for the 1936-1939 Arab Revolt in Palestine. Following the death of al-Qassam at the hands of the British in late 1935, tensions erupted in 1936 into the Arab general strike and the general boycott. The strike soon deteriorated into violence, and the Arab Revolt was bloodily repressed by the British, assisted by the is bloodily repressed by the British, assisted by the British Armed Forces of the Jewish Settlement Police, the Jewish Supernumeracy Police, and Special Night Squads. The suppression of the revolt would leave at least 14% of the adult male population killed, wounded, imprisoned, or exiled. In the first wave of organized violence, lasting until early 1937, most of the Arab groups were defeated by the British, and forced expulsion of much of the Arab leadership ensued. With much of the leadership in exile and the economy severely weakened, the Palestinians would struggle to confront the Zionist movement, which was growing in strength with the support of the British. The costs and risks associated with the revolt and the ongoing intercommunal conflict led to a shift in British policies in the region and the appointment of the Peel Commission, which recommended the partitioning of Palestine. The two main Jewish leaders, Chaim Weizmann and David Ben-Gurion, accepted the recommendations on the basis that it would allow for further expansion, but some secondary Jewish leaders disapproved of it. The subsequent publication of the White Paper in 1939, which sought to limit Jewish immigration to the region, was the breaking point in relations between British authorities and the Zionist movement. White Paper in 1939 was a policy paper issued by the British government, led by Neville Chamberlain in response to the 1936, and it's okay. We're going to take a look at this real quick. After its formal approval in the House of Commons on May 23rd, 1939, it acted as the governing policy for mandatory. After the war, the mandate was referred to the United Nations. The policy, first drafted in March 1939, was prepared by the British government unilaterally as a result of the failure of the Arab Zionist London Conference. The paper called for the establishment of a Jewish national home in an independent Palestinian state within 10 years, rejecting the Peel Commission's idea of partitioning Palestine. Okay, there was an attempt to set a Jewish homeland before in Africa, but was unsuccessful as it was already settled by Europeans there who gained more support, claiming they were ironically being... Wait, hold on. God, my brain is slow today. There was an attempt to set a Jewish homeland before in Africa, but was unsuccessful as it was already settled by Europeans there who gained more support, claiming they were being displaced. Wait a minute. Are you saying then? Okay. So what you're saying is that they tried to establish a Jewish national state or a Jewish homeland in Africa, but the place they had already done it was already being settled by Europeans, and the Europeans were sitting there claiming that they were being displaced by the Jewish population? Is that what you mean? Am I interpreting that correctly? Because if so, like, oh my god, it's such... Oh my god. Why is everyone bad all the time? How about... what? That's a real question that I have. God. White people acting persecuted since the beginning of time. Oh my god. Holy shit. I'm just like, I'm kind of taken aback by that. That's fucking crazy. You can't settle here. We're already settling here, but your attempt to settle here is oppressing us, and we're being displaced by you. Even though we displaced the native population here in order to settle this area, and now you're gonna displace us. Oh my god, whiny. Of course they got more support off of that. God damn, that's... anyway. 1936 to 1939, and they're wait, did I already read this? Following the... Oh, yes, I did. I already read this. Brain. Okay, 1940s. Oh, I bet the 1940s were a great time for the Palestinians. I bet that was just... bet that was a rollicking good time. The renewed violence, which continued sporadically until the beginning of World War II, ended with around 5,000 casualties on the Arab side and 700 combined on the British and Jewish side total. With the eruption of World War II and the situation in Mandatory Palestine calmed down, it allowed a shift towards a more moderate stance among Palestinian Arabs under the leadership of the Nashashibi clan and even the establishment of the Jewish Arab Palestine Regiment under British command, fighting Germans in North Africa. I also noticed that it's kind of interesting. It seems like they tried to pull a back then kind of like a primordial two-state solution. It wasn't really. I mean, just based off of this quick skimming of information, it seems less like it was a mutually agreed upon attempt at like these two coexisting governing bodies, and more so a forced resolution by the British and French and whatnot. So I think that's a little interesting that they tried to do that, but obviously it didn't work. Not saying that it wouldn't work today, or it wouldn't have worked today. Not like they really have that fucking choice now, but anyway, it allowed a shift towards a more moderate stance among Palestinian Arabs under the leadership of the Nashashibi clan, and even the establishment of the Jewish Arab Palestine Regiment under British command, fighting Germans in North Africa. The more radical exiled faction of al-Husseini, however, tended to cooperate with Nazi Germany. Oh, those are good allies. You know how to pick them. And participating in the establishment of a pro-Nazi propaganda machine throughout the Arab world. The defeat of Arab nationalists in Iraq and subsequent relocation of al-Husseini to Nazi-occupied Europe tied his hands regarding field operations in Palestine, though he regularly demanded the Italians and the Germans bomb Tel Aviv. By the end of World War II, a crisis over the fate of Holocaust survivors from Europe led to renewed tensions between the Yishuv and Mandate authorities, increased illegal immigration from Jewish refugees, along with a paramilitary campaign of resistance against British authorities by Zionist militias would effectively overturn the white paper and eventually lead to the withdrawal of British. Yeah, I'm not surprised that the 1940s kind of exacerbated the issues that Palestine was already facing with, like, kind of, I don't want to say forced Jewish immigration, but increased Jewish immigration. Obviously, you know what? I'm not surprised in even the slightest. I didn't realize. Let's see. The defeat of Arab nationalists in Iraq and subsequent relocation of al-Husseini to Nazi. Okay, al-Husseini. It's what a nice man to be hanging out with the Nazis. It's probably best that he did end up getting kind of like separated from oversight of the Palestinian mandate or the operations in Palestine. It's probably a good thing that he got removed there, considering his uh, dispositions. Tel Aviv, where's Tel Aviv? Wait, is Tel Aviv still a part of Palestine, of Gaza today, or is Tel Aviv now in Israel? Okay, but this also ultimately ended up getting the. Okay. So wait, hold on. If the British ended up getting kicked out, then that would mean that like that British occupancy is gone. They don't have like the military force to like maintain their presence. So hold on. Oh, it was the Zionists who ended up pushing out the Britain. Okay, I see. I mean, that's not good, but I mean, I don't know. That's interesting. Okay. On November 29th, 1947, the General Assembly of the United Nations adopted Resolution 181, recommending the adoption and implementation of a plan to partition Palestine into an Arab state, a Jewish state, and the city of Jerusalem. Hold on, I'm gonna have a small brain moment. What does partition mean? Partition definition. The action or state of dividing or being divided into parts. Oh, okay. So they were gonna. Oh, so they wanted to just cut up Palestine in order to create an Arab state, a Jewish state, and then the city of. Wait, the city of Jerusalem would be separate? That's interesting. Is that because it would be? Is that because it would be considered like a holy land for both groups? I don't know. Is Jerusalem considered a holy land to like Arab people? I don't want to. I feel like by saying Arab, I'm being extremely racist, but it's not my intention. I promise. Anyway, Palestinian Arabs were opposed to the partition. Zionists accepted the partition, but planned to expand Israel's borders beyond what was allocated to it by the UN. Wow, lying from the very beginning, going back on their word from the very beginning. What? God damn. Whew. On the next day, Palestine was swept by violence. For 4 months, under continuous Arab provocation attack, the Yishuv was usually on the defensive while occasionally retaliating. The Arab League supporting the Arab struggle by forming the volunteer-based Arab Liberation Army, supporting the Palestinian Arab Army of the Holy War under the leadership of... I'm not going to try. I don't... Abd al-Qadir al-Husayni, or Husseini, and Hassan Salama. On the Jewish side, the civil war was managed by the major underground militias, the Haganah, Igern, and Lehi, strengthened by numerous Jewish veterans of World War II and foreign volunteers. By spring 1948, it was already clear that the Arab forces were nearing a total collapse, while Yishuv forces gained more and more territory, creating a large-scale refugee problem of Palestinian Arabs. Okay, hold on. I want to look at... Where is it? Trying to find the link for Yishuv because I think very clear that the Arab forces were here while Yishuv forces. Okay, so Yishuv is just like a faction. Was it an Arab faction? Oh, here we go. Here's a link to it, a hyperlink. Yishuv or Hayishuv. Ooh, I can't pronounce that. Denotes the body of Jews resident in Palestine prior to the establishment of the State of Israel. Oh, okay. Came into use in the 1880s when there were about 25,000 Jews living in that region and continued to be used until 1948, by which their time they were... Okay. So that's just referring to the group of Jews that were present before. Okay. Well, there's again forcing one more time. Okay, so it seems like as the Arab forces were like collapsing. Well, hold on. Let me read through this again. For 4 months under continuous Arab provocation attack, the Yishuv was usually on the defensive while occasionally retaliating. The Arab League supported the Arab struggle. Volunteer base. Arab Liberation Army supporting the Palestinian. Oh, okay. So the issue, the population of the Jews there were kind of like defending themselves through like paramilitary groups, um, while the Arabs kind of formed their own paramilitary group and were fighting against it. Okay, I see. But in that process, they collapsed, and it kind of, yeah. Okay. 94 Arab-Israeli War. Following the declaration of the establishment of the State of Israel on May 14th, 1948, the Arab League decided to intervene on behalf of Palestinian Arabs, marching their forces into former British Palestine, beginning the main phase of the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. The overall fighting, leading to around 50,000 casualties, resulted in ceasefire and armistice agreements of 1949, with Israel holding much of the former Mandate territory, Jordan occupying and later annexing the West Bank, and Egypt taking over the Gaza Strip, where the All-Palestine government was declared by the Arab League of September 22nd, 1948. By David Ben-Gurion, the section had world designers. Hold on, I want to look at this real quick. Jurisdiction would come into effect on termination of the British Mandate at midnight that day. The event is celebrated in Israel's Independence Day, a national holiday on Hebrew calendar. Okay. I guess I'm just curious when the U.S. comes in to support. To start supporting Israel, but it looks like Israel has been just like taking over Palestinian territory from the very beginning, just slowly but surely. So it has literally been since it's been earlier than that. It's been what, maybe, oh god, that's so long, since like 1920-ish, which when everything really started going off. So that's 80 years plus another 24 years. So that's 104 years that the Palestinians have literally just been slowly genocided. That's fucking insane. 1956 Suez Crisis. Through the 1950s, Jordan and Egypt supported the Palestinian Fedayeen, or militants or guerrillas of national orientation from among the Palestinian people. Oh, okay. Militants cross-border attacks into Israel, while Israel carried out its own reprisal operations in the host countries. In the 1956 Suez Crisis resulted in a short-term Israeli occupation of the Gaza Strip and exile of the All-Palestine government, which was later restored with Israeli withdrawal. The All-Palestinian government was completely abandoned by Egypt in 1959 and was officially merged in the United Arab Republic, to the detriment of the Palestinian national movement. Gaza Strip was put under the authority of the Egyptian military administrator, making it a de facto military occupation. In 1964, however, a new organization, the Palestine Liberation Organization, was established by Yasser Arafat. It immediately won the support of most Arab League governments and was granted a seat in the Arab League. Yeah, so, goddamn, they've just literally just been picked apart since day one. That's insane. Let's see, the 6-Day War. The 1967 Six-Day War exerted a significant effect upon Palestinian nationalism as Israel gained military control of the West Bank from Jordan and the Gaza Strip from Egypt. Consequently, the PLO was unable to establish any control on the ground and established its headquarters in Jordan, home to hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. It supported the Jordanian army during the War of Attrition, which included the Battle of Karama. However, the Palestinian base in Jordan collapsed with the Jordanian-Palestinian Civil War in 1970. The PLO, defeated by the Jordanians, caused most of the Palestinian militants to relocate to South Lebanon, where they soon took over large areas, creating the so-called Fatah land. Fatah. Here, I actually have that up. Formerly, the Palestinian National Liberation Movement is a Palestinian nationalist and social democratic political party. It is the largest faction of the Confederated multi-party Palestine Liberation Organization, and the second largest party in the Palestinian Legislative Council. Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinian Authority, is the chairman of Fatah. Fatah is generally considered to have had a strong involvement in revolutionary struggle in the past and has maintained a number of militant groups. Fatah has been closely identified with the leadership of its founder and chairman, Yasser Arafat, until his death in 2004. when Farouk Kadumi constitutionally succeeded him to the position of Fatah chairman. Okay, hold on. Let me read it. Okay, so it's a political party. Okay. Let's see. 1973, Yom Kippur War. On October 6, 1973, a coalition of Arab forces consisting of mainly Egypt and Syria launched a surprise attack against Israel on the Jewish holy day of Yom Kippur. Egypt and Syria had crossed over the ceasefire lines that they were agreed upon prior to 1973. Egypt had, in particular, tried to reoccupy much of the area surrounding the Suez Canal, whilst the front line with Syria was mainly situated around it, or in the north in the Golan Heights. The war concluded with an Israeli victory, with both sides suffering tremendous casualties. Lebanon War. Palestinian insurgency in South Lebanon peaked in the early 1970s as Lebanon was used as a base to launch attacks on northern Israel and airplane hijacking campaigns worldwide, which drew Israeli retaliation. During the Lebanese Civil War, Palestinian militants continued to launch attacks against Israel while also battling opponents with Lebanon. In 1978, the Coastal Road Massacre, that sounds fun, led to the Israeli full-scale invasion known as Operation Litani. Israeli forces, however, quickly withdrew from Lebanon and the attacks against Israel resumed. In 1982, following an assassination attempt on one of its diplomats by Palestinians, the Israeli government decided to take sides in the Lebanese Civil War, and the 1982 Lebanon War commenced. The initial results for Israel were successful. Most Palestinian militants were defeated within several weeks. Beirut was captured, and the PLO headquarters were evacuated to Tunisia in June by Yasser Arafat's decision. Okay. First, Intifada. I can't deny that they do have some fun words. I know that may sound bad, but I like saying a lot of the words. They're just fun, okay? I'm sorry. I think they're interesting. Anyway, the first Palestinian uprising began in 1987 as a response to escalating attacks and the endless occupation. By the early 1990s, international efforts to settle the conflict had begun in light of the success of the Egyptian-Israeli peace treaty in 1982. Eventually, the Israeli-Palestinian peace process led to the Oslo Accords of 1993, allowing the PLO to relocate from Tunisia and take ground on the West Bank and Gaza Strip, establishing the Palestinian National Authority. The peace process also had significant opposition among radical Islamic elements of Palestinian society, such as Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, who immediately initiated a campaign of attacks against or targeting Israelis. Following hundreds of casualties and a wave of radical anti-government propaganda, Israeli Prime Minister Rabin was assassinated by an Israeli far-right extremist who objected to the peace initiative. This struck a serious blow to the peace process from which the newly elected government of Israel had in 1996 backed off. Hold on, let me see. By the early 1990s, international efforts to settle the conflict had begun in light of the Egyptian peace. Eventually, the peace process led to the Oslo Accords of 1983. Okay, so it just kind of allowed them to, okay, I see, shift their base of operations back to Palestinian territory instead of having to hang out in Lebanon. Or not in Lebanon, Tunisia. Let's see, Second Intifada. Following several years of unsuccessful negotiations, the conflict re-erupted as the Second Intifada in September 2000. The violence escalated into an open conflict between the Palestinian National Security Forces and the Israel Defense Forces, lasted until 2004/2005 and led to approximately 130 fatalities. 2005, Israeli Prime Minister Sharon ordered the removal of Israeli settlers and soldiers from Gaza. What? That's insane. If only we could do the same today. Israel and its Supreme Court formally declared an end to occupation, saying it had no effective control over what occurred in Gaza. However, the United Nations, Human Rights Watch, and many other international bodies and NGOs continue to consider Israel to be the occupying power of the Gaza Strip, as Israel controls Gaza Strip's airspace, territorial waters, and controls the movement of people or goods in or out of Gaza by air or sea. removing your settlers and soldiers from Gaza is very, it's based, but all yeah. I mean, if you're still if you still control like the outlying avenues of resource, just resources in general, then yeah, obviously like you still have the power to fuck with them pretty bad. Fatah Hamas split. In 2006, Hamas won a plurality of 44% in the Palestinian parliamentary election. Israel responded it would begin economic sanctions unless Hamas agreed to accept prior Israeli Palestinian agreements, forswear violence, and recognize Israel's right to exist. All of which Hamas rejected. Okay, yeah, okay. Like, okay. Here's the deal. Here's the deal with Hamas. All right. Here's the deal with in my opinion, with Hamas. Like they have every right to say fuck you to Israel because Israel does not give a fuck. Like from the inception of this entire conflict, Palestinian rights, Palestinian autonomy had been completely and utterly walked over and ignored, and like from the very beginning. And I'm not saying Hamas is good, but like at the same time, I can understand why they want to say fuck off to Israel and to anyone else that is like on the side of Israel. I really can't blame them for that. I will, like I said, I mean, like being a terrorist probably, not always the best solution. Anyway, let's see. After internal Palestinian political struggle between Fatah and Hamas erupted in the Battle of Gaza, 2007, Hamas took full control of the area. In 2007, Israel imposed a naval blockade on the Gaza Strip in cooperation with Egypt, allowed a ground blockade of the Egyptian border. The tensions between Israel and Hamas escalated until late 2008, when Israel launched Operation Cast Lead upon Gaza, resulting in thousands of civilian casualties and billions of dollars in damage. Probably don't fucking kill civilians. By February 2009, a ceasefire was signed with international mediation between the parties, though the occupation and small and sporadic eruptions of violence continued. Yeah, I mean, I can't blame these people for being radicalized. Like, at this point, in 2006, their autonomy had been undermined for like 80 years, like a little around 80 years. Like, I can understand why they would be frustrated at the idea that suddenly these nations which are around them, which completely ignored them before, would listen to them. Like, sometimes standing on ceremony is just standing on ceremony, and sometimes it's just not good enough. You want to make them forswear violence. You want to make them, you want to make, I don't know. It's, yeah. In 2011, Palestinian Authority attempt to gain UN membership as a fully sovereign state failed. In Hamas-controlled Gaza, sporadic rocket attacks on Israel and Israeli air raids continued to occur. In November 2012, Palestinian representation in the UN was upgraded to a non-member observer state, and its mission title was changed from Palestine represented by PLO to State of Palestine. In 2014, another war broke out between Israel and Gaza, resulting in over 70 Israeli and over 2,000 Palestinian casualties. I wonder how much of this could have been like prevented if their membership, like if they were fully accepted in the UN and had like literal actual representation. I wonder how much of that could have stemmed the tide of the violence, or stemmed the tide of the just the occupation and whatnot in general. Israel-Hamas war, 2023 to present. After the 2014 war and 2021 crisis, Hamas began planning an attack on Israel. In 2022, Netanyahu returned to power. Colonial violence is quite common throughout history because there is no other meaningful way for people to oppose their oppression. I mean, yes, absolutely. I mean, when you have literally no other options, when you can't vote, when you're coming down to a situation where you can't vote in the government that rules over you, you don't have any representation in like Congress or Senate or any state position, when you don't have the right to determine your own territorial lines, when you don't even have the right to really just, I mean, it really comes down to even things like you can't even really say your own personal prayers. You can't even be in your own home and say your own personal prayers without like some form of imposition. So yeah, like violence is going to end up being your only option. And that's something that's about the particulars, the particular dynamics of the situation now is Israel leans on the presence of Hamas and the violence of Hamas to kind of put forward a lot of their propaganda and bring people onto their, onto their side. But the reality of the situation is that Hamas exists because they don't really have any other avenues of fighting back or maintaining their own sovereignty or autonomy. They don't have a way of protecting themselves realistically beyond violence, even if it's small, insignificant violence, even if it's senseless or purposeful violence. They don't have another option. You know, when you're some 14-year-old kid in Palestine, since you were a child, you've watched your homes be bombed out. You've watched your people be slaughtered in the streets. It's no surprise that you're eventually going to get to the point where you say, yeah, there's nothing else I can do but commit violence. It's just a natural occurrence, and you can't be surprised when that happens. You can't really, like, you have to kind of analyze why, okay, you have to take a step back, and you have to ask yourself, why is this kind of paramilitary, like, terroristic violence, so on, why is this occurring? Is it because, like, in the case of, like, Palestinians, is it because the Palestinians are just, like, inherently terroristic or violent or what have you? No, it's because like their state is malicious or anything. No, it's because for decades they have been under, like, severe conditions of occupation and oppression. For decades they've had their human rights taken away, ignored. They'd have their representation removed. It's the issue here isn't the Palestinians or anything like that. It's the people who forced those circumstances on the Palestinians in the first place. And you have to look at correcting their behavior, correcting their actions before you can even take a look at dissolving a body like Hamas. Like, you have to actually consider what's contributing to these issues. And, you know, Israel and its allies are invested in distracting you from actually analyzing the issues and actually analyzing the core cause of the resulting circumstances. And it's part of how they perpetuate their violence. It's a part of how they perpetuate their oppression, their bigotry, their, you know, just all that. That's how they perpetuate it. I don't think we really need to read the Hamas war to present. Yeah, it's just, that's something that's very frustrating when this gets brought up is just like, everybody wants to be like, well, Hamas this, Hamas that, you know, it's Hamas's fault that these civilians get killed because they're hiding in their homes. It's Hamas's fault that these civilians are getting killed because they're hiding in the hospitals. It's Hamas's fault for this. It's Hamas's fault for that. When in reality, no, it's not. It's not Hamas's fault. Like, okay, Hamas is bad. They go and they kill people. They're terrorists. They're you know, radical jihadists or whatever. They're bad, but, like, they're not the problem. They're not the issue here at all. It's you know, it's the Israeli government. It's them cutting off food. It's them cutting off water. It's them cutting off transportation. It's them destroying shelter. You know, these are the actual issues. But everybody displaces it onto Hamas and uses Hamas as a scapegoat, even though they're really not important. They're not even really, I would say at this point, they're not even an actor in this. Nobody fucking talks about Hamas anymore because we've gotten past the point where everything can be displaced onto Hamas, where it can be blamed, where they can be blamed. The dichotomy now doesn't even involve Hamas. It's literally just like, and good, I'm glad that this is the dichotomy now, but it's literally just like, Israel and the government and the Israeli government trying to put out propaganda to cover up what they're doing, and then you have the juxtaposing side, which is the Palestinians, who aren't doing anything except for sitting there dying in the streets. Anyway, Oslo Accords. In 1993, Israeli officials led by Yitzhak Rabin and Palestinian leaders from the Palestinian Liberation Organization, led by Yasser Arafat, strove to find a peaceful solution through what became known as the Oslo Peace Process. A crucial milestone in this process was Arafat's letter of recognition of Israel's right to exist. In 1993, the Oslo Accords were finalized as a framework for future Israeli-Palestinian relations. The crux of the Oslo Agreement was that Israel would gradually cede control of the Palestinian territories over to the Palestinians in exchange for peace. The Oslo process was delicate and progressed in fits and starts. The process took a turning point at the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin in November 1995, and finally unraveled when Arafat and Ehud Barak failed to reach an agreement at Camp David in July 2000. Robert Malley, Special Assistant to U.S. President Bill Clinton for Arab-Israeli Affairs, has confirmed that while Barack, what is Obama's first name, or what is Obama's last name, I should say? Made no formal written offer to Arafat. The U.S. did present concepts for peace, which were considered by the Israeli side, yet left unanswered by Arafat. The Palestinians' principal failing is that the beginning of the Camp David summit onward, they were unable either to say yes to the American ideas or to present a cogent and specific counterproposal of their own. Consequently, there are different accounts of the proposals. I just want to double back real quick. Those particular criticisms about, like, you know, Israel creating the circumstances in which Hamas was created. Anyway, that obviously that applies, like, to a lot of different places. You know, you have, like, well, just off the top of my head, you have, like, the French occupation of a lot of, like, African countries, or not a lot, but, you know, there's French occupation of a lot of African countries, just general European occupation of a lot of African countries, and it creates, you know, you end up with the natives, you know, creating militant groups and doing their best to fight back against the occupation, and it gets spun as, instead of, it kind of gets spun in this narrative where, instead of it being where the issue isn't that the Europeans or the group or whatever it are coming and illegally, like, occupying, taking territory of the African natives, it doesn't become that's the issue. Instead, what it becomes is these, you know, the violent Africans, you know, senselessly killing white people or Europeans. You know, it becomes the savage, the backwater native or what have you. That's just senselessly violent for no reason at all. You know, they're just terrorists or what have you because they're terrorists. You know, the focus gets shifted off of what's actually causing the issues. You know, I'm getting out of breath because I'm not used to talking this much anymore. And it's important to keep that in mind when you look at these kinds of situations. You know, Israel isn't the only one. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is not the only one who kind of, like, you know, falls under these same conditions. It's just right now they're the most prominent. There are plenty of other conflicts which we could look at. It's like, I mean, you know, like I said, I don't know, like, a bunch about, like, the different, like, like the different colonial projects carried out by, like, European countries, but, you know, there's a lot of them that occurred in Africa, and people are gonna sit here and they're gonna, you know, the common narrative, at least among like, you know, the conservatives and whatnot, is that these nations, these people from, like, Europe, they come into these backwater, savage, third world African countries. They try to give them civilization through medication, education, socialization, things like that. But the violent African rejects these things because they're, like, primitive, they're animalistic, they're barbarian, they're you know, they you know, this is just the framing, this is what I'm saying, but, like, that's how it gets interpreted. And when in the reality, it's like, okay, the black people that they're calling savage, or the African, they should say Africans, that they're calling savage, that they're framing as, like, violent, that they're framing as terrorists or whatever. Could they be? Yes, absolutely. Could they be terrorists or whatever? Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, they're being violent. But it's like, in this process, the native Africans are having their rights and representation. They're having their autonomy stripped from them. Their right, you know, to determination and so that. They're having that stripped from them in the process of being settled, you know. And so, obviously, they're going to rise up. They're going to commit violence in order to protect themselves, protect their, you know, their national identity or whatever. And it's just, it happens all over the place. But people don't really want to pay attention to it and what actually causes the situations, or what actually causes the issues. You know, and it's like, you want to be careful because you don't want to make, like, these blanket statements. Are there obviously, like, people in these scenarios? You know, you have, like, the European colonizers coming over. You have, like, the British occupation in Palestine or whatever, where they're bringing Jewish immigrants over. Not every single person who is brought over or what have you, like the Jewish immigrants, is going to be a bad person. They're not going to be someone who is, necessarily going to go out of their way to make life miserable or to take away the rights of these people. So it's like, are there casualties? Are there, are innocent people killed during this? Yes, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know. Anyway, I might be losing the point a little bit. I'm rambling now, but anyway. In July 2000, U.S. President Bill Clinton convened a peace summit between Yeah. It is a trend, no matter where you go. It happens. It does. And it's occurred throughout all of human history. It's nothing new, but we do need to definitely try and, I guess, gotta accept that it happens, and then you gotta do your best to make sure that. I guess it's. I don't know. I don't want to say kept under control, but there are definitely better ways of addressing them or addressing it. Anyway, in July 2000, U.S. President Bill Clinton convened a peace summit between Palestinian President Yasser Arafat and Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak. Barak reportedly put forward the following as basis for negotiation via the U.S. to the Palestinian president: a non-militarized Palestinian state split into 3 to 4 parties containing 87 and 92%. Thus, an Israeli offer of 91% of the West Bank. Wait, hold on. I don't like measurements. They're against my faith. The West Bank translated on East Street. The West Bank, including only parts of East Jerusalem and the entire Gaza Strip, as well as a stipulation that 69 Jewish settlements, which comprise 85% of the, would be ceded to Israel. No right or of return to Israel. No sovereignty over the Temple Mount or any core East Jerusalem neighborhoods. Continued Israeli control over the Jordan Valley. Wait, hold on. Via the U.S., a non-militarized Palestinian state split into 3 to 4 parties containing 87 to 92%. I don't know exactly what that refers to. It's very funny that they tried to strip Palestine of any possibility to defend themselves straight off the bat, because they probably already intended to, as they had already been doing, take that land later. Thus, an Israeli offer of 91%. So that's 91% control of the Western Bank, I think. Okay. Arafat rejected this offer. According to the Palestinian negotiators, the offer did not remove many elements of the Israeli occupation regarding land, security, settlements, and Jerusalem. President Clinton reportedly requested that Arafat make a counteroffer, but he proposed none. Former Israeli Foreign Minister Shlomo Ben-Ami, who kept a diary of the negotiations, said in an interview in 2001, when asked whether the Palestinians made a counterproposal, no. And that is the heart of the matter. Never, in the negotiations between us and the Palestinians, was there a Palestinian counterproposal. In a separate interview in 2006, Ben-Ami stated that were he a Palestinian, he would have rejected the Camp David offer. No tenable solution was crafted which would satisfy both Israeli and Palestinian demands, even under intense U.S. pressure. Clinton had long blamed Arafat for the collapse of the summit. In these months following the summit, Clinton appointed former U.S. Senator George J. Mitchell to lead a fact-finding committee aiming to identify strategies for restoring the peace process. The committee's findings were published in 2001 with the dismantlement of existing Israeli settlements and Palestinian crackdown on militant activity being one strategy. I will say, I really can't blame this guy. Let me find his name again. Palestinian. Okay, yeah. No, I can't really blame Yasser Arafat here for just being like no and not wanting to offer a counterproposal, because like there's no reason to assume for him in any way, shape, or form that even that Israel would be actually good faith on these negotiations. Literally, like I would reject it. I would say no, because it's how do I put this? What would actually be offered to Israel? They're not actually being given back their ability to govern themselves. They're not being given back their autonomy. They're not being allowed to govern their, like, they're just not, like, God, I'm trying to think of how best to put this. What does Israel have to offer this guy other than just a complete and utter, like, secession to each and every demand that Yasir had. You've taken away their land. You've taken away their ability to, you've taken away their autonomy. You actively are encroaching on their land further and further. You discourage their faith. You kind of marginalize them. You begin to push them into a group of a lesser being. Like I can't blame him for saying no. Like, I'm gonna read this. I am gonna read this again to make sure. But yeah, it's just like, what? Okay. Let's see. Yeah, it's just like it's kind of like the situation we're in now. It's like, okay, you want peace talks, right? You want a negotiation between the two parties. Well, okay, what is it that the Palestinian side has to offer to the Israeli side? What, we'll leave the land, give the rest of it to you, let you do whatever the fuck you want with it, and we'll figure out the rest for ourselves? Versus what Israel should realistically be giving to the Palestinian side, which is like all of their land back, a bunch of fucking money to help with infrastructure, rights to determine their trade routes, the ability to govern themselves, like that. They're I guess the scale is like, there isn't a reason for him to offer, to make a counter offer, really, like, because everything, like, I don't know, it's just Israel should be rolling out the red carpet for Palestine at that point, but they didn't. But let's see. Developments following Camp David. Following the failed summit, Palestinian and Israeli negotiators continue to meet in small groups through August and September 2000 to try to build or bridge the gaps between their respective positions. The United States prepared its own plan to resolve the outstanding issues. Clinton's representation of the U.S. proposals was delayed by the advent of the Second Intifada at the end of September. Clinton's plan, eventually presented on December 23, 2000, proposed the establishment of a sovereign Palestinian state in the Gaza Strip and 94 to 96% of the West Bank, plus the equivalent of 1 to 3% of the West Bank in land swamps from the pre-1967 Israel. On Jerusalem, the plan stated that the general principle is that Arab areas are Palestinian and that Jewish areas are Israel. The holy sites were to be split on the basis that Palestinians would have sovereignty over the Temple Mount / Noble Sanctuary, while the Israelis would have sovereignty over the Western Wall. On refugees, the plan suggested a number of proposals, including financial compensation, the right of return to the Palestinian state, and Israeli acknowledgement of suffering caused to the Palestinians in 1948. Security proposals referred to a non-militarized Palestinian state and an international force for border security. Both sides accepted Clinton's plan, and it became the basis for the negotiations at the Taba Peace Summit the following January. It doesn't sound awful. I'm not like an expert on these kinds of things, but it doesn't sound horrible. Obviously, the lack of demilitarizing Palestine is not a very good idea still. I mean, I don't know. Like, I understand that they might be concerned about, like, further paramilitary... the paramilitary action is going to happen either way, whether or not they have an actual formalized military or they don't. In fact, actually, they should have a formalized military, because then they could properly regulate and reprimand where it is necessary. They could actually hold people accountable. So I feel like it's actually working against itself to be like, no, you don't get a military. You just get to do what you've been doing for the past several decades, where you form paramilitary groups and you do guerrilla warfare, literally working against themselves on that, but whatever. Taba Summit, 2001. The Israeli negotiation team presented a new map at the Taba Summit in Taba, Egypt in January 2001. The proposition removed the temporarily Israeli-controlled areas, and the Palestinian side accepted this as a basis for further negotiation. With Israeli elections looming, the talks ended without an agreement, but the two sides issued a joint statement attesting to the progress that they had made. The sides declared that they have never been closer to reaching an agreement, and it is thus our shared belief that the remaining gaps could be bridged with the resumption of negotiations following the Israeli elections. The following month, the Likud party candidate Ariel Sharon defeated Ehud Barak in the Israeli elections and was elected as Israeli Prime Minister on February 7, 2001. Sharon's new government chose not to resume the high-level talks. Oh, that's really fucking cool. Thank you, Israel. God, literally just the problem every fucking time. But having those property rights over like the Israel, the just just give them the West Bank. Just fucking, I don't know why it's so difficult. I hate countries. I hate states. I hate them. I hate them. I hate them. Why does everybody want everything for themselves? Oh my god. Unnecessary division. One Peace proposal presented by the Quartet of the European Union, Russia, and the United Nations and the United States on September 17th, 2002 was the roadmap for peace. This plan did not attempt to resolve difficult questions such as the fate of Jerusalem or Israeli settlements, but left that to be negotiated in later phases of the process. The proposal never made it beyond the first phase, whose goal called for a halt to both Israeli settlement construction and Israeli-Palestinian violence. Neither goal has been achieved as of November 2015. Okay. We're not done with this, but I will carry on with it a little later. I might do some reading up off stream so that way I can kind of better direct things. In summary, Israel bad, Palestine good. It looks like Palestine literally just was like fucking picked apart by vultures since the very beginning. I mean, I feel like, how long did Palestine even exist independent from like outside forces, I guess? I mean, it doesn't really matter. I'm definitely learning a lot more than I expected to. I do need time to synthesize the information in my brain, but in summary, yeah, Palestine just kind of got fucked, and I'm not. First off, fuck the French, fuck the British, obviously, especially the British. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say other than like this is just more grim than I thought it could ever be. I mean, my initial assumption or my initial impressions were like Palestine, was its own nation for a while until eventually like the U.S. Had some involvement with establishing like Jerusalem, or not Jerusalem, Israel. Obviously, that was wrong. I was wrong about that. It's just I don't know. It's just holy fuck. It's like. It's so much more complicated than you think it would be. I mean, it always is. It's just I don't know what commentary I have on it right now, besides what I've already said. People need to educate themselves on this though. Like it's just so unambiguously like Israel being a piece of shit and like taking everything that Palestine has, shaking hands with them while crossing their fingers behind their back, being like, oh yeah, no, we have this agreement, but. Turns out they're going to completely go back on it anyway. I don't know. It's very, very enlightening, though. Very enlightening. I'm going to try and look into more of the terminology, a little more of, like, maybe the specific conflicts which exacerbated the political, or just the tensions between the two nations. Obviously, like Britain and the U.S. and Russia and so forth, kind of stepping up and speaking on Palestine's half. Obviously, not great. You gotta let the representatives of that government of that nation actually do their job and represent them. The UN sucks for just outright saying that they're not going to be a member. They were an honorary member. They got to sit in on meetings, but I feel like a lot of I don't know exactly, but I feel like there could have been a lot of I feel like a lot of the resulting conflicts could have been, I guess, if not avoided, at the very least kind of assuaged, if Palestine had been allowed to be an official UN member. I think that probably would have solidified their territorial their borders more, and it would have prevented Israel from being able to encroach more. I think Israel probably would have faced a larger reprimand for that kind of behavior if they had. Yeah, it's just, yeah. I just, I don't know. We'll read a little more up on it the next time I stream. I'm still very interested in learning about what's going on here. It's very complex, and I think it's extremely prevalent, especially going, forward, given the political climate, that we have, not just, not just here in the U.S., but around the world, It's scary shit. You got that good old fascism on the rise a little bit, and we can see that very obviously with the behavior of Benjamin Netanyahu. We got like Putin doing what he's doing, fighting in Ukraine, which, by the way, passing that Ukraine aid bill was awesome. All the Republicans coping and seething about how, like, because they flew little flags after passing, little Ukrainian flags after passing the bill. Like, I loved scrolling through Twitter, just seeing a bunch of them freaking out, being like, well, you're a traitor. These traitors in Congress flying this flag. And it's like, dude, you literally are like buying Bibles from your daddy Trump. So I don't know. It's just that, but we just need to educate ourselves, be more aware about this kind of stuff. But thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Like I said, we're going to go over this more on another stream. And then something I do want to do is I want to look at more of the cultural aspects of the Palestinian people, a lot of their traditions. I want to see kind of like, what they like, what they do, what like traditions they observe, what holidays they celebrate, I just want to look at the different aspects of it. I think it's especially a good thing to do, since we may not have those things, or at least those things may not be I guess readily available before too long. I feel like we gotta try and respect them as much as possible. And I feel like, going over this stuff, it's going to spread a little more awareness, and hopefully we can do our part to preserve the Palestinian history and the Palestinian culture. So yeah, I got to get out of here. So you have an awesome day. Stay safe, be well. And yeah, just thank you.